with the first pick.
Thunderstruck! Thunderstruck! Yeah, Thunderstruck!
Welcome into the Fantasy Rant Podcast presented by Stadium Rant. I am Dan Baker, accompanied by Evan Gooding, Mason Beck, and Lee Cook. Today we're going to be talking about the players whose dynasty value has changed the most from the beginning season to now, as well as players who we think their value will change the most from now to the beginning of next season. And of course, we will start it off with the wheel of misfortune. Evan, why don't you take it away for how we did in week 13?
All right, I'll be working my way up to the top. So I got the steal this week. I put up 47.82 points. My biggest duds were Najee and Firemuth. And just not too much going good, positive my way. And the wheel, gave it to me hard last week. So it's tough. But then working my way up, we're moving up to Dan, who put up 59.12. Also a tough week for him after seeing Christian Kirk go down on the first play of the game. But he did have a great performance from Trevor Lawrence. I wonder how he would have finished if both stayed in the entire time. And then third, we had Mason. 73, or actually, no, third we had Lee, who I thought Lee won this thing already because he had Jordan Love and then Sam Laporta, both having bomb weeks. But nope, 69.98 points was not enough because Mason came through in the clutch with Evan Ingram putting up 23.2, Brock Purdy 29.46, and Pacheco. Mason won with his wide receiver getting 0 points. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and Lee coming in second, his wide receiver also got 0 points. So, the rest of our positions just carried us. Brock Purdy, big game against the Eagles. What can I say? He's going to do what he can do. MVP, future MVP coming up here.
It's too funny. And I like how you're phrasing it, Evan. You get the steal this week as this.
Yeah,
you get the L. That's what you got.
I get the steal. That's how I'm looking at it, dude. The wheel got me so bad last week, though. All those skips, getting the same exact player. Couldn't believe it. Both my skips, I got the same exact player.
All right, so we will kick it over to Mason for the quarterback rankings. We got our 6 players on the wheel here. So Mason, how do you see these players ranking this week?
All right, so my number 1 this week is going to be Russell Wilson at the Chargers. Chargers give up a lot of points against the pass. Wilson's been looking good. Denver offense has just been more consistent. Last week was a little shaky, but, I'm not expecting that to happen against the Chargers. And then I got Baker Mayfield at Atlanta. Atlanta gives up the 13th most to quarterbacks, so just a solid matchup, and Baker can let that ball fly sometimes. And then I got Minshew as number 3. I only got him as number 3 because since he does give up a lot to the pass, they give up the 7th most to pass. So it gives him a lot of upside there. I'm going to go Joshua Dobbs against the Raiders. Raiders give up they don't give up a ton to the pass, but out of the other 2 options, I just rate him a little above him. And I'm going to go Geno as number 5 just because it's a division matchup game. Niners defense is tough. They give up the 5th least to quarterback. But division matchup, you never know what Pete Carroll is going to cook up there. And then Jake Browning, I know he came off a good week, but it's just 1 week, and Indy is a tough defense against doesn't give a lot to quarterbacks.
It's only fair. I do have Joshua Dobbs a little bit higher up. I think he's going to have a bounce back week, and with getting Justin Jefferson back, plus what he gives you on the ground, I do have him ranked as number 2. And then pretty much the same from there on out. I got Baker, and then I got I got Browning. He looks good. That's the thing. I wasn't a big believer in Browning at all, but completing a high number of his passes, high completion percentage, and with guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to lean on, pretty solid. Indy also started off the year really poorly against wide receivers. Bit of a rebound as of late. But I do think that they're still susceptible, especially on the outside.
Yep. I don't agree with you with Russ. He's not going to be cooking against my Chargers. I understand he has been cooking recently, but it's just not happening.
Last week was a terrible week. 3 picks against Houston. I think 2 of them went to why am I blanking on his name? Derek Stingley. Guy's starting to have a little bit of a bounce back week. But just the Chargers have been giving up so much through the air. I do also have Russell at number 1.
We did make a change
but-
at our cornerback too, so that might change things.
Yeah, I have Russell at 1 as well. The big question for me on this wheel, and it's a real life decision, is super flex. I just lost Trevor Lawrence. I have to decide between Minshew and Browning. I'm kind of agreeing with you, Mason. I think Minshew. I think Cincinnati defense is a little better, but he's a more proven guy. We have seen him put up big games. We've only seen one real big game from Browning. Who knows what he produces this week? But it is a juicy matchup.
Definitely. And if Minshew had Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, I'd probably also lean towards Minshew. But we have yet to see Josh Downs really bounce back since the injury. So looking for him to prove it a little bit in this game. But enough said about the quarterbacks. Let's spin this wheel. Mason, you're kicking it off this week. Beware of the steal from Evan.
Nope.
Your favorite player on your favorite team.
Yeah, I'm not taking Geno. There, like I said, there's the upside of the division matchup, but I'm not rooting for a Seattle Seahawk.
Yeah. San Fran giving up a lot of points to wide receivers, but somehow not giving up that much points to quarterbacks. They are 9th in terms of quarterbacks given to points given to the quarterback over the last 8 weeks. We got Lee. He's got Russell Wilson against the Chargers. You said you ranked him number 1, so I'm assuming you're taking him.
Yes, sir.
All right, lock it in. We got Russ off the board. Let's see who I will get here. I'm fine with that. Minshew's a safe play. I think there's going to be other places on the wheel where I want to save one of my 2 skips. So I will take Minshew. Let's see who Evan is potentially stuck with. He does have his steal in the back pocket.
Mm-hmm. I'd get my skips in there too. I'm happy with Baker. Baker was in my top 3.
Nice. Oh, yeah, that's right. You went last, so you still have your skip. All right, so on to the next one. We got
Mason still got to get his QB.
You're the one who skipped. Okay.
Yeah.
We're figuring it out.
I went
Jake
from my number
Browning.
5 ranked quarterback to my number 6. So I guess let's hope Jake Browning has another good week.
All right, we're going to send it over to Lee for the running back rankings this week.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I really debated on these for a while, talent versus matchup. And I ended up with Breece Hall 1. I do like the Houston matchup. We got Zach Wilson back at quarterback, maybe reluctantly, who knows, but could see him definitely leaning on Hall, so I like him as 1. And this is where I really struggled, were 2 through 6, but I went A.J. Dillon. Hadn't done much this year, but against the Giants defense, the Packers offenses really seem to turn it on, even though a lot of it's been through the air. I went James Cook playing Kansas City at 3. Chuba 4 against New Orleans. He had a really boom game last week. Looks like the new coaching staff is going to really give him the majority of touches. Jalen Warren, tough matchup against the Patriots defense that is it gave up 10 or under in the last three games and lost every one of them. And then you got Zeke playing Pittsburgh. A lot of opportunity with Ramondre going down, but again, pretty good run defense and just a putrid offense. So don't see many scoring opportunities for Zeke.
No, I pretty much agree with everything on the list. Breece Hall being 1 just because of none of these running backs really stand out to me. And just Breece Hall does have the big play factor. The only thing I would switch is move Warren up 1 just because he does have that big play factor as well. And that's really the only thing I would change off your rankings.
I got a little bit more faith in Zeke with the opportunity he's going to get now and the volume he's going to get with Ramondre out. They literally don't have anybody else behind that backfield behind him. So I think he's going to eat again like he used to. Maybe not like he used to, but he'll eat pretty good.
Shockingly, I have Chuba ranked number 1. Last week, under the new regime, 25 touches on the ground, 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Miles Sanders has been an afterthought. He had 8 touches for 23 yards, not efficient. And Saints, once upon a time, very good run defense. But over the last 8 weeks, they are 23rd So what is that? Giving up about the ninth most points to the running back position during that time. So I got Hubbard, James Cook, Brees Hall just because of that volume, Ezekiel Elliott, Jalen Warren, and AJ Dillon, despite a juicy matchup against the Giants. Um, haven't gotten a confirmation on if Aaron Jones is going to be in this game or not. It's not looking likely, but so far the only thing on there is the report that he's missing week 13. So we'll see if he's good enough to join the squad for this game. Probably don't need him to beat the Giants. All right, so let's see here. We got Lee kicking it off. Let's see who you got first up.
Ooh.
I'm gonna take a skip on Jalen.
Passing on Jalen Warren remains on the board. Yet to see also any confirmation for Najee. Not looking promising that'll be out there. All right, I got my number one ranked guy. I do think this is a risky business, but I'm taking Chuba Hubbard off the board. Kick it over to Evan for the wheel here. Does he take Jalen Warren?
So it's me. I thought, did Mason go yet?
No, I'm after you.
Mason's first.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Oh, yeah. That's right. All right. Yeah, I'm going to pass on Jalen Warren as well.
Okay.
He was in my.
You were just talking him up. We were just texting about him. You were talking him up. I'm surprised.
Well, I'm talking him up to more than what I sold him for in Dynasty.
Oh, a third time. Does Mason take Jalen Warren? Already
Jalen
passed
Warren.
once. Did he use both his passes?
Yeah, no, I'm going to take him just because of the big play upside. I mean, might not be the best matchup, but, if he can break off for a big run, and then, just a couple volume catches, and I'll be good with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if Najee misses, I think that a big play is likely to happen here. All right, so Lee is stuck with James Cook against Kansas City. That was my number 2 ranked this week. Lee, I missed it. Where did you say you had him ranked?
I had him at 3, so I'm pretty happy with that.
3? Yeah, right. It's pretty solid for a second spin there.
Oh, AJ Dillon. I'm so this is gonna suck if Aaron Jones does come back, but I got to take him.
I mean, you do.
You're not using your skip.
I would have if Brees Hall got
you're-
picked, but none of you guys got Brees Hall.
I mean,
Wheels is doing me dirty
Houston's
again.
defense has really stepped it up recently. Over the last 4 weeks, they are the 4th best defense against the running back position. I feel like there's still the narrative that they're terrible against the run because of last season, but they've been stepping it up. They've been proving themselves both offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it goes. Evan doesn't use the steal quite yet. We're moving on to wide receivers here. I felt like all of these guys were pretty closely ranked. Guys that we have today this week: Jackson Smith and Jigba against San Francisco, Chris Godwin at Atlanta, Jordan Addison against the Raiders, Jerry Jeudy heading to Los Angeles, take on the Chargers, Josh Downs against Cincinnati, and T. Higgins against Indy. Call me biased. I'm ready for T. Higgins to bounce back. He's my number 1 wide receiver, and I'm waiting for Evan to rank him last and talk his back. I got him ranked number 1. I think that he's going to – it is Browning has been definitely targeting Jamar Chase. There was that play last week in the red zone where Higgins is wide open, doesn't look his way, and I believe the ball bounced off Jamar Chase in the tight window there. But second, I got Chris Godwin against Atlanta. Atlanta's been susceptible through the air. I got Jordan Addison, number 3. Probably would have been ranked at number 1 if Jefferson remained out. But with his likely return, I think he's going to be the 3rd read in this offense. Joshua Dobbs loves throwing to the tight end. Did it both in Arizona and continues to do so in Minnesota. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's been stepping it up recently. I like him. I've been waiting for this to happen, and it seems like it's finally his time. He has been playing at least 63% of the snaps since their bye week, and last week had 11 targets. So liking him to start to surpass Tyler Lockett. I got Jerry Judy going against the Chargers. Judy has been awful, and I'm going to be talking about him later on in our Dynasty segment. And then last, I have Josh Downs heading to Cincinnati.
I mean, I'd put Josh Downs above Judy, just to be honest, just because Judy's had such a poor year. Downs hasn't been doing good since the injury, but Michael Pittman's also just been on an absolute tear. Who knows how long that's going to last once that tear kind of slows down. Downs will be involved a little more. So it could happen this week, and just off of what Judy's done this year, I'd put Downs ahead of him just because the upside of what Downs can do.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think for me, when I looked at these rankings, it was Judy last, and pretty much the other five guys are pretty interchangeable. Throw it against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, I got a little bit more faith in Addison going in this week. They may ease Justin Jefferson back into the office, and I understand he's practicing fully and everything like that too. But he's already got a connection with Dobbs, but not that Dobbs needs connections because he's just bouncing around and doing work with no matter what. But I also have Josh Downs a little bit higher. So yeah, pretty.
All right.
I totally agree with the Addison upside too, honestly, on that. That is a good point. Jefferson could just be out there more of a decoy this week. I'm not necessarily betting on that he'll be a decoy, but that could be the game plan.
They almost benched
I just
Dobbs
disagree
after last week.
Right. Yeah, that's the one thing. If they end up throwing anybody out there that's not Dobbs, I think Addison takes a huge hit. But as far as Jefferson goes, I highly doubt they're just throwing him out there as a decoy. He's their star player. There's no way they're rushing him onto the field before he's ready. And they've given him a little bit extra rest in comparison to how long we thought he'd be out. So I think he's going to be a full go. He's already practicing in full this week. I expect Jefferson to have a huge week. Addison's efficiency was great at the beginning of the season when playing with Jefferson. So I think he's a big play away all the time with Jefferson on the field. But I do think that we're going to see his volume go down a considerable amount. All right, let's spin that thing.
Spin it.
Let's go, baby. T. Higgins. Put my money where my mouth is. He's off the board. I'm taking him. All right, Evan. I know you wanted them real bad, so I'm sorry you can't have
I
them.
wanted my bottom two. One of my bottom two guys. Oh, this one's a tough one.
Last week, saved by a rushing touchdown. Caught no balls though.
I'm gonna skip.
All right.
Yeah, I don't like it. He's actually pretty low. He's not doing anything really this season.
No spike weeks. He's been consistent, like 8 to 12 points, but nothing big. I'm very much assuming Mason is skipping Judy. Did you
use my second skip? Get rid of him.
Second skip. All right.
Judy.
Mason is out of skips. Jackson Smith and Jigba going against San Francisco. San Fran, they are giving a lot of points to the wide receivers. Right now, 27. So 6th most points to the wide receiver position. Or last 8.
We'll take him.
I think it's a solid play. He didn't do great against San Fran 2 weeks ago, but I do think that his role is continuing to increase.
And defense could be a little different this week without Greenlaw as well. So
this one's me, right?
Evan,
I got
your guy you're talking up. You got Addison. Everyone's putting their money where their mouth is so far. Takes Addison. We got.
All right, I'll take Godwin. All I need is a couple big throws from Baker, and we're good.
Right. That's the one thing. He hasn't been the big play guy. Not that he ever really was, but just limited upside, but probably a very safe floor against Atlanta. Yeah. All right, Evan, you have the tight end rankings this week since you finished last. Take it away.
All right, so my number one. Well, actually, I'll read them all off first. We got Travis Kelce versus Buff, T.J. Hawkinson versus Vegas, Kittle versus Seattle, Laporta versus Chicago, Evan Ingram versus Cleveland, Dalton Kincaid versus Kansas City, and I got Laporta into my number one.
Boy.
It's not a great matchup, I know, but it doesn't seem to matter for him. He's just putting up points regardless, and I love the guy. But number 2, I got Kelsey. Number 3, I got TJ Hawkinson. Number 4, I got Dalton Kincaid. Number 5, I got George Kittle. 6, Evan Ingram to close out. Even though he got 23 points last week, he's facing Cleveland defense. I just could not rank him any higher. But I feel like all these guys are going to be absolute studs. Like there's really no bust here. So yeah, it was tough one to judge.
This is Travis Kelce's debut on the wheel. I haven't been. He's just so far and away better than every other tight end. I haven't felt comfortable throwing him on there. I needed to get him on at least once this season, and I have identical rankings, except I flipped Kelsey and Laporta at the top.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I would be too. Just Kelsey. Who is Mahomes throwing to besides Kelsey?
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that as well for the most part. Kelsey 1, and then I had Hawkinson 2 and Laporta 3, but they're all pretty close. Really torn on Evan Ingram. I did have him last, but without Christian Kirk, especially if Lawrence was there, I think I'd have him higher. I mean, I expect 10 targets at least. You got a young quarterback who's going to be looking for the safety valve. It is a good defense, but I don't hate any of these guys, but I had it pretty much the same.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes with CJ Beathard, but Ingram, not a single game outside of week 1 with under 6 targets. So just like you said, can easily expect that those 8 to 10 targets there, especially with Kirk out. I think if Ward is back, Greg Newsom's going to be the slot corner, and I think he will have some focus on Evan Ingram along with Grant Delpit. Both are solid in coverage. But right now, with that matchup, I will take Ingram last as well. Evan, you're going to kick off the first tight end here. Let's see who you got.
TJ, can't be mad at that.
Can't be mad at that. You're taking him.
I know. I don't even know who I'm going to. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough here.
Someone's going to need to get Laporta or Kelsey.
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess I'm stuck with him. I mean, I'm not too mad about it. Dalton Kincaid is who I'm going with. I mean, all these tight ends are interchangeable. I wanted Kelsey.
Yeah, they're going to be throwing early and often against this KC defense, especially with the Buffalo secondary still a little banged up. I think it's going to be a shootout. All right, Lee, let's see. No. Dang. I wanted that. Very much stupid. Yeah, we don't even have to ask. You got Travis Kelce. That's a lock. We'll see if Travis Kelce remains on your team, though. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Second best thing I can ask for. I'll take Sam Laporta for sure. Didn't use a single skip this week. Now, what it comes down to, though, Evan?
Oh, I'm taking Sam Laporta. I might as well.
Oh.
I'm taking him. So don't get comfy over there, man. You're welcome, Lee.
You got TJ Hawkinson. I'll take the swap there. I'm not gonna respin. I'm happy with TJ Hawkinson. Didn't have anybody else ranked above him that isn't already off the board.
Yep.
All right. So before we dive straight into, sorry, go ahead, Mason.
I think we got the 4 best tight ends off the board there, and I think we all kind of agree on that.
Yep. 100%. Yeah, that's definitely how I had them ranked. George Kittle might have been a little bit higher if he wasn't so boomer bust with all of the starters healthy. So now that they got Debo back and looking as good as ever, definitely moves Kittle down a considerable amount week to week. All right, we got our teams locked in. Before we dive into the biggest dynasty movers over the past season and heading into next season, we had a question come in. We got Tyler Lamb asking, what is Joe Mixon's current dynasty value in Superflex tight end premium leagues? If no one else wants to, does anyone want to lead with this? I'll jump in if no one else wants to.
I'm honestly looking at him as kind of like a back end tight or back end RB2. And maybe that would have been different a week ago, but Chase Brown actually got some usage last week. And if Chase Brown continues to get usage, that's going to lower my value on Mixon even more into the offseason.
I think
Yeah,
his
I
value
agree.
did go up a little bit, though. From where it was the beginning of the season, his value did increase. Makes sense.
But
I don't know
Mixon
that it has. I
year,
mean,
right?
to me, with the restructure of the contract, he's probably there another year, but he hasn't looked good. I mean, I know he's had some good weeks, but for the most part, he hasn't. He just looks slower. To me, he's definitely a guy. If you have him in Dynasty, I'm looking to trade him in the offseason. I would probably take a second round pick. Unless I really am light at running back and think I can win it next year. He's one of those guys I think you want to sell while you can to get some value.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. Sell to a win now team. I would take an early second as well. But let's think about that, kind of put that to the test. In the Superflex League this year, at the beginning of the second round, we had some of the back end wide receivers, and then guys like Tank Bigsby going. Sometimes Zach Charbonnet would drop or Devin A-Chain would drop. Obviously, knowing what we know about A-Chain now, I would definitely take that over Joe Mixon. But generally speaking, those other guys, would you do a 1-for-1? Let's just call it a middle of the pack team so there's no bias on rebuilding or win now. Let's say you're sixth place right now, borderline playoff team. Would you take Zach Charbonnet for Joe Mixon straight up?
Yes.
Yeah, I would too.
I probably would.
Another thing, just to add, so he did say tight end premium, and this has been a complete outlier year, but my man Sam Laporta was right there at the top of the second round in a lot of tight end premiums. Musgrave was mid to late second round. And again, this is an outlier year, but even Dalton Kincaid fell to the second. So, we've had a lot of production from rookie tight ends, which we don't normally see, but that does change the equation just a little bit as well.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't trade him for I wouldn't trade an early second for him, to be honest.
No, yeah, I would.
You're saying you would take the second.
I would take Mixon over Charbonnet, but I wouldn't take an early second for him this next couple of year. Or I wouldn't trade my early second for him.
That's fair enough. I do agree, though, Mason. I have him as an RB2 as well. With running backs being so volatile year to year, I'm really only looking 2 years down the road. We know one of those years he's locked up with Cincinnati. Chase Brown is an athletic freak and will eat into his workload over the course of next season. But I really don't think that the goal line work is going to go to another running back. And with Burrow back next year, Mixon both can catch the ball and is likely to have at least 8 to 10 touchdowns if he stays healthy. All right. That leads us into our biggest dynasty movers. We broke it up into 4 categories. We got the biggest increase from the 2023 preseason to now, biggest decrease during that same time. And then we got players looking forward into the future. We got whose value will increase the most by the beginning of next year and whose value will decrease the most by the beginning of next year. Evan, I'm going to kick it off to you first. This is the guy that I almost wrote down. I figured one of us would take it. So why don't you take it away from me?
Yeah, I was the last one to pick one. I'm surprised he was still available for me. But this guy was taken so late in drafts. His name's Kyren Williams. I haven't seen actually startup that happened last year where he was taken before the 18th round. I could see him going in the 6 to 8 range at least next season. And I mean, he missed 4 games this year, and he's already RB. He's still RB7 after missing those 4 games and half PPR. He's RB7, so that's just fantastic for him. I do know Sean McVay tends to not really trust running backs long, but I am considering that in my evaluation of around 6 to 8 next year in startups. I think that's fair.
That's more than fair. Yeah, I think he'll probably go a little bit earlier than that, but that was going to be the one thing I bring up is we haven't really seen a running back finish as the RB1 for the Rams in back-to-back years since Todd Gurley. So that's a little bit room to be nervous. However, if they were going to give it to a guy, I would imagine they would do it with Kyren over the other options they've had over the past 4 or 5 years. Not giving that to Darrell Henderson or Cam Akers, Royce Freeman, any of these scrubs that they've signed and made solid running backs. Kyren's taken the role given and really ran with it.
I mean, yeah, Kyron's looked good, and I think the Rams, as a team and whole, have a lot more to fix besides the running back position when they already got a guy who's producing. So I don't think they're going to – I mean, they might draft a running back 6th, 7th round. A lot of teams do that even if they have a good running back. But, I don't think they're going to spend a high-value pick and get some guy who's going to be replacing Kyron next year. I mean, 2 years down the line, maybe we'll see, how the team's going. But I think there's zero chance they bring in anyone to replace him next season.
I would disagree a little bit. I'm not going to say they bring in a surefire starter over him, but just seeing what they had to do with the injury, they sold Cam Akers pretty cheap. I think you're almost guaranteed that there is going to be competition next year, and it may be a mid-round pick, it may be a veteran signing, but they have to bolster the running back room. I mean, they had to bring in guys off the street this year, and something tells me they don't want to be in that same situation next year.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting too. Who knows what the Rams do with the first round pick, because they haven't had one since 2016. So last time they had a first round pick, they took Jared Goff at number 1 overall. I don't know how many people had Jared Goff going number 1 overall that year, but we will see what this wild card of a team does with their first round pick. I agree they probably won't sign or bring in a big name at running back. So I'm happy with Tyron. He puts up points every way you want him to, puts up big yardage, tons of receptions, tons of red zone work. So great pick there, Evan. I'm going to kick it off to Mason for the second player we're bringing up today.
So my guy whose value has increased massively between the offseason and now is going to be my boy, Brock Purdy. He's currently QB7 in standard leagues. Brock Purdy was getting drafted as kind of like a back-end quarterback 2 in a lot of redraft leagues. I mean, if you're drafting him as a backup and now he should be starting every single game, I mean, he's dominated good defenses. There was a little worry for dynasty value as far as like, where would Brock Purdy be? Is he really going to be the QB of the future for the team? And as a Niner fan, I can confidently say Brock Purdy is our quarterback of the future. I mean, he's even in MVP talks right now. For where Brock Purdy was getting drafted right now, obviously he's not at the value of Mahomes or anything like that, as far as dynasty value goes, but he's still producing these numbers that where he was drafted at, he is massively ahead. That he'll be drafted at least 10, 12 rounds ahead of him next year.
100%. To piggyback off what you said, the Fantasy Pros had the 2023 ADP for Brock Purdy. He was the QB 27 off the board, 227th pick overall. That is crazy value. I'm imagining some of this was during the offseason where you still had the Trey Lance Brock Purdy debate. No debate anymore. This guy's a cheap quarterback contract that plays well within your system. Definitely a huge steal if you were able to get him at that ADP last season.
Well, speaking of his contract, though, I don't know if they signed a big boy contract for him. I don't know if they're like San Francisco. That offense is really just kind of a plug and play. They can really put a lot of people in there that would be very effective. And I don't know if they're going to give him big boy money.
I'm going to
years after this year.
Yeah. Brock Purdy, when he's going to be becoming a free agent, kind of that point where we extend him or not, that we're going to be like, that's a lot of contracts are up in the air that year. Yeah. So I think they're going to be more committing to a QB instead of these position players when that time comes.
If he puts up 2 more seasons like he has this year, they're going to pay that man. They're going to back up the Brinks truck. I almost took Purdy, but I knew as a 49er fan you wanted him, Mason, so I left him available.
I appreciate it.
Just, what a story. The last Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, really saved the front office from the Trey Lance debacle. Wow. Yeah. That's things. They may make a movie about this guy one day.
Oh, would the Niners be where we are right now if we didn't get lucky with Mr. Irrelevant? No idea.
Sam Darnold. That's where he'd be.
Jimmy would still be a Niner if that was the case.
Yeah, most likely. All right. And honestly, I had all of these players that you guys had listed in consideration for who I was going to take. Lee, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so mine, I think, it's just a huge jump, as everybody has been listed, but Trey McBride with the Cardinals. One big thing that, is kind of just doing a little background on this, Kyler Murray's been back for 4 games. with those 4 games that he's been back, Trey McBride is the number 1 tight end over those last 4 weeks.
Look at that.
Dude is balling. Now, I do expect Arizona to bring in some competition, possibly Marvin Harrison. That they're going to beef up the receiving targets, but McBride has took such a huge step. I'm not going to say he was left for dead in the preseason, but he was a guy that was way down the tight end ranking list and top 3 in Dynasty right now. I mean, Kelsey, the way he's looked is dropping. How much future does he have? Mark Andrews is hurt. I mean, you've got 3 real studs in Laporta, McBride, and Kincaid. Which if you got any of them on your Dynasty team, you should be set at tight end for the next 10 years. But McBride was somebody that could be had fairly cheaply, even early in the year. They just got rid of Zach Ertz. There's no competition. He's going to be a beast at that position, whether they move on at quarterback or not. He's going to be a cornerstone of the Arizona offense for at least the next, I would say, 3 to 6 years.
I totally agree on this. Trey McBride's a massive increase. There's a league where I have Darren Waller and George Kittle, big competitor team, and so I was trying to move Trey McBride in the offseason. Was offering it for second, most likely late seconds. We don't know in the offseason, but most likely late, getting denied. Now, I mean, if you want Trey McBride from me, it's a first round pick at least for Trey McBride.
Yeah, those guys are kicking themselves for not taking that deal.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad they did not. I'm very glad they didn't. I'm flexing Trey McBride.
Yeah. On top of everything you said, Cardinals right now are targeting their tight end at the second highest rate in the league. 1/3 of the quarterback targets are going to the tight end position. And now that is narrowed down, like you said, no Zach Ertz, it's all going to Trey McBride. So that's huge. And now, again, like you said, Kyler Murray distributing the ball rather than Joshua Dobbs. It's massive. It's a crazy steal. You probably could have even gotten him halfway through the season for a late second, and just skyrocketed since Kyler's return.
I actually had an opportunity to buy him for a second, but I was trying to buy him for 2/3 instead. I was trying to be cheap, and I do wish I committed on the second. Because now there's no shot I get him for that price. But I am interested to see, what happens when Michael Wilson does come back, if it eats away at some targets and they do try to share to the wide receiver more a little bit. Because right now all they have really is Marquise Brown and Rondale Moore. I mean, of course, Greg Dortch too. But dude, Dortch. I do think that Michael Wilson will eat into his target share a little bit more. So I'm interested to see how he finishes the season.
I mean, I could see Dortch picking into maybe 1 or 2 targets, but I don't think it's going to be enough to where you're going to be wanting to sit McBride any week. I mean, he's a top 12 tight end, I think.
Michael Wilson? You said Dortch. Did you mean Michael Wilson?
I meant Michael Wilson. Sorry. Yeah. But, I don't see eating too much into it. I mean, McBride's top 12 dynasty tight end for me for sure.
Yeah, people weren't patient enough. His value only plummeted that low because of his first year. And honestly, the tight ends take a while to develop too. So I got him in the 13th round in the 16-team dynasty league, and really happy with that value.
You could have even got him probably cheaper this season because all these rookie tight ends blowing up and McBride wasn't. People were probably like, "Oh, let me get rid of him."
I should have committed on the second. I should have bought him.
I traded Jacoby Myers in a second for McBride in a third, and I'm thrilled with that.
I'm happy with that. I love Jacoby.
All right, so that's going to send it to my player here. We got Nico Collins. He's only played 11 games. In that time, he is the wide receiver 12, even with missing 1 game. He's wide receiver 9 in points per game. Right now, he is averaging 7.7 targets, 5.4 receptions, 90 yards, and half a touchdown per game. Just absolutely insane numbers for especially where you could have gotten him this year. Fantasy Pros had him ranked. His ADP was wide receiver 58 heading into this season. That is nuts. He was being drafted behind players like Tyler Boyd, Rashad Bateman, Alan Lazard, Adam Thielen, old man Adam, Juju Smith-Schuster, Michael Thomas, and OBJ. That is insane for a 24-year-old wide receiver attached to an amazing quarterback. I think that's why he was drafted as low as he is. I don't think people expected CJ Stroud to be balling out like this. There's a ton of questions heading into the season. They were saying that the wide receiver room isn't going to be able to step up this offense. Also, the signing of D'Amico Ryans as the head coach, I'll say after that, along with Dameon Pierce coming off a great rookie season, I very much expected this team to be a team that prides itself on defense and running the ball first. It hasn't been the case. They're throwing the ball a ton. They are right now, they have the second highest passing yards per game. Nico's balling out, and he has something that the other wide receivers on that team don't have, which is that size speed combo. Tank Dell is amazing, don't get me wrong, but they're vastly different styled players. So Nico is going to be a threat for a long time to come, and you could have gotten him crazy cheap this offseason. On top of it, Robert Woods is signed through 2024, but his dead cap is $3.2 million. If they cut him, they'd save 6.5 by cutting him next season if they do it before June 1st. And then Noah Brown's contract is up next year. Tank Dell is the only other real threat there. Maybe they go out and get another guy, but even Dalton Schultz only signed a 1-year deal. So really it's just Nico and Tank guaranteed moving forward.
I mean, I totally agree. Another thing I would add on coming to this offseason, there's a little worry. Obviously, they drafted Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, and then John Mechie, is going to have his first healthy season. A lot of young guys, a lot of question on who's really going to emerge. And this whole season, my opinion on what's going on in the Texans wide receiver room is that Nico Collins and Tank Dell are the two wide receivers of the future for that team. I don't think they go out. They might go sign a third guy, who's a playmaker, gets a couple big plays every once in a while. But I don't see them ever going in a guy that's going to take away these big target shares from Nico or Tank Dell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I drafted Nico in a startup when he was a rookie. I got him in the 16th round, and I was super ecstatic about it. And I liked him more than Amon-Ra at the time. And then obviously that value has changed a lot too. But I would have probably traded Nico for a second in the offseason this past year. Now I definitely would not. It's definitely a first round pick for me. I love Nico, and I'm very happy with that selection too.
I like it. I mean, my one fear is kind of if, excuse me, one, they don't have a first round pick. They traded their first round pick. So that helps, but I would be a little concerned about them bringing in another wide receiver, possibly a bigger guy, a Mike Evans, maybe even a T. Higgins, to where if he does get shuffled to the third wide receiver, I'd be a little cautious. But with the increase, you can't deny it. The offensive coordinator, I know you mentioned D'Amico Ryans, but the offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, I may have messed up his pronunciation, but that's the other thing I'd be a little nervous about. He's getting a lot of head coach attention. He has connections here in Washington. It's possible he's the next head coach in Washington or he gets another job. So just a little concerned if the offense changes up. But overall, I mean, a heck of an increase. A guy who's really had that breakout this year. And, the future looks bright with C.J. Stroud back there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's you touched on it a little bit. They moved up into the third pick overall to go get Will Anderson. That was another indicator to me that I was like, oh, okay, they really want to beef up this defense. Thought it was going to be defense run first, but yeah, we're going to move on to the players that have seen their value decrease the most since the preseason. Evan, we'll kick it back to you to start it off.
All right, and we're going to be starting it off with Jahan Dotson. He was taken in the 6th and 7th round in most drafts, and he might carry value, a lot of value. I know you shaking your head, Lee, and he's going to carry value into next year because of his age. But I won't be targeting him. He's had only 3 games over 10 points, and this is with Sam Howell throwing over 500 pass attempts on the offense. So that being said, he's just not an asset for that team. Seems like right now, as he's not being utilized as he should be based on his talent. I do think he's more talented than this, but he should be performing significantly better. So I won't take it before the 10th round next year if I'm in a startup.
I mean, yeah, with she said Sam Howell's throwing and Dotson's not getting the production that we expect. But I mean, even Terry McLaurin put up 0 last week. I mean, I don't think the play calling is really there. I don't think the coaching is right in Washington. I mean, like Lee said, they're probably going to see something different next year. So, I mean, he's definitely decreased for sure for this year, but there is a little upside with next year if that whole entire coaching staff does change.
Yeah, I think the long term is still there. There's a possibility that there's a new quarterback. I don't know this how's the slam dunk. Specifically, if we end up in a top 3 pick, I don't see him drafting Marvin Harrison. That would kill his value. Falling to the third guy. But I think it's either quarterback or O tackle. But there's going to be a new offensive coordinator. I don't see Eric Bieniemy sticking. He's not going to get the head coaching job, and whoever they bring in is going to want their own guy. Jahan showed so much talent, while he was injured last year, and it's been very disappointing. I mean, he's been healthy for the most part. The play calling, he's never been the first read, it seems. You got Terry McLaurin there, but yeah, the spreading of the ball around, Hal's inconsistency. There's a lot of things that have really drug him down, but I expect him to have a bounce back. I mean, he's got the draft capital. He's got the talent. I expect him to have a big bounce back year next year. And maybe I'm just a homer.
I mean, they're using Curtis Samuel way more than him.
Curtis Samuel's a free agent after this season.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me because, I mean, right now, Howell in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues, quarterback number 4. His wide receiver options, Dotson is wide receiver 45, McLaurin 29, Curtis Samuel wide receiver 40. Logan Thomas he's having a decent year, tight end 14. They really are just spreading the ball out so much. Howell's eating up all of that production. But I agree with you, Lee. I think that Dawson is too talented for this to continue. Something's got to change. He's on the field enough to get the production, but it's just not happening. They're not looking his way consistently enough. He's not quite as efficient as scoring touchdowns as he was last season. Not that touchdown rate's going to keep up for any player, but he's way too good in order for him to be 44 receptions for 458 yards through 13 games. That's nuts to me. Something's got to give. I do think that he is a buy, but his value is just plummeted this season in comparison to last. All right, so this is going to move us on to Mason's player. How the mighty have fallen from his offseason rankings. Mason, go ahead.
So, hurts my pride for saying this, but my person who has decreased massively is Kadarius Toney. I believe he was getting drafted 8th, 9th round. I thought he was going to be Kansas City's wide receiver of the future. He got traded late through the half season, was recovering from injury. He was getting some trick plays. I thought, okay, he's just getting the trick plays in. Once they work in the offseason playbook, Toney will be up. He'll be in this offense. That dude drops a lot of footballs. He does nothing but trick plays now. I have no reason to defend Kadarius Toney. I've dropped him in I know this is more Dynasty, every single redraft league I'm in, Toney's off my team. There's your question. There's a couple Dynasty leagues I have him in where I'm like, send me a third, and I will gratefully accept that for Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney was a second-round value for me going into the season. I would trade. If I was to go get Toney, I would trade a 4th round, maybe.
Way to take accountability. I got to give it to you. That's one of the hardest things to do as a fantasy football guy, But
I accepted that.
Yeah, we know that's true for you, Evan.
I'm still learning how to do that, Mason. So you're already light years ahead of me there. But I totally agree. I feel like every single wide receiver on the Kansas City offense is taking a dump
except Rasheed.
I mean, and almost every, but and Justin Ross still to be determined.
There we go. I was waiting for it.
Yeah. Mark, chalk it up.
We're up to 24 on the season. It's decreased significantly. I think we're probably at like 15 through the off season.
If we didn't get arrested, I think we'd be in the 50s. So, hey.
Yeah. Hey, and not to dunk on you anymore, but and we're gonna do the same thing when we bring up the player that I'm talking about and a couple players here. But you had Kadarius Toney ranked as wide receiver 28 in Dynasty heading into the season. I'll bring up my ranking for the player I'm going to bring up, but we will kick it over to Lee for his player that decreased the most at the beginning.
Before Lee starts, though, you said I had him as 27th or 28th.
What did you say?
Where did you say Tony at?
Yes, you had him at wide receiver 28 in Dynasty.
Oh, he's in my 50s now, maybe 60s.
Yeah, probably deeper than that. Wide receiver 102 on the season.
Yep.
Yes, I'm going to stay in the same wide receiver room. We touched on a little bit with the Kansas City wide receivers. He's not a guy that was ranked extremely high, but there were a lot of truthers out there. There are a lot of people that still believe preseason was Sky Moore. He was a second-round pick from last year, didn't really do anything, didn't get a lot of time on the field. Well, he's gotten plenty of time on the field this year, and turns out he's not very good. When you can't get it done with Patrick Mahomes and the amount of routes that he's run, targets are earned, and he's not earning the targets. He's a guy to me that has next to no value in Dynasty. He could probably just be cut, depending on who's available. The guy from the Jaguars, Washington, that had a few breakout plays. I would drop Sky Moore for him in a second right now. And there's a lot of other guys I would consider it. His value is at as low as it could possibly be. Don't really see a future for him beyond a special teams player and a wide receiver 4 or 5.
Yeah, no, it's a great point too, specifically with Parker Washington. We already know that Calvin Ridley is going to be a free agent after the season. So weird that he's technically still playing on his rookie contract.
Right.
He's got the 5th-year extension, but that's it for him after this year with Jacksonville, unless they decide to extend him. I think that he's going to be asking for far too much money for what they'll want to give him. Zay Jones next year also could be gone. Base salary of $7 million, dead cap of 1.18.
I think there's zero chance they would be gone, though, if Ridley's gone.
Dead cap of 6. No, yeah, I don't think that he'll be gone, but he's not a huge threat. They've shown that they can support 3 wide receivers on this team. So I like your call with Parker Washington. And it's less so even speaking to Parker Washington's talent or opportunity. It's more so speaking to Sky Moore's lack of production. I was able to get a crazy trade this offseason, or a couple weeks into the season. I traded away KJ Osborne for Sky Moore in a second. Sky Moore was nice that he was thrown in there, but I would have taken the deal just KJ for a second because, like you said, Sky Moore has close to zero value in my eyes.
In that league, though, it's a deep league too. So, I do think there is a saving grace for him too. If he does move on and go to a team like the Chargers or something like that, I could see him actually doing well on another team. For some reason, I just don't like him in that offense. So I think he's worth a hold if you got the room. But man, if you don't got room, if there's not a deep benches, I totally agree. Parker Washington has more potential for you.
I'm not straight up cutting Sky Moore like you said, Lee. If I'm in a team that's very rebuilt this year, maybe if I'm competing, I would cut him if I need a spot, desperately need to drop him. But if I'm a rebuilding team, I'm not dropping Sky Moore yet. I'm more waiting for some offseason reports, maybe dropping him after you have your rookie draft. But I'm not necessarily dropping him yet just because who knows? Like Evan said, maybe they trade him somewhere. Maybe he's somewhere else in the offseason, maybe gets a little more upside. Yeah, I'm just more waiting to see offseason reports. But I do agree. He can be cuttable, but I'm waiting a little longer.
My only thing with maybe he gets traded is where's he going to go with a better situation?
Exactly. That's exactly
somewhere
what
where Travis Kelce isn't on the offense.
There's no wide receiver room, really. Rashee Rice didn't even prove himself until recently. Sky Moore has been playing at least 50% of the snaps every week. He just hasn't done anything with it. He has yet to have a game more than 4 receptions, has 1 game of 70 yards. Other than that, nothing above 42. 1 touchdown on the season. It's not great. And he's attached to the best quarterback in the league and no wide receiver competition around him, really. So I'm there with you, Lee. I would be fine moving on from him. He is just 23 years old. I did like him coming out of the draft, honestly. But I think he would need to really fall into the perfect situation in order for him to even be like wide receiver 3 level.
I think an interesting player comp there is Elijah Moore. More and more.
I think Elijah Moore is better than Sky Moore. Yeah,
I agree. Elijah Moore, first season on the Jets was money. He just hasn't been used since then, whether it's been in the Jets offense or the Cleveland offense. Flacco seems to like him, though, so finally.
Right, already had a little bit of connect with playing with him on the Jets last season for 5 games. Amari Cooper's likely to be out. We haven't seen too many players turn around from a concussion in 1 week. So I think this will be a great test for him coming up. Jacksonville allowing the 30th most passing yards per game, and he's going to be needed in this game. So we'll see how it goes for Elijah Moore here. The last player we'll be bringing up today, I got Jerry Jeudy. And this is exactly what we were talking about. This is my biggest miss in Dynasty. I actually didn't draft him in any of my startups this year, but I did have him on a team where we did a startup a couple of years back. I had Jerry Jeudy ranked as wide receiver 17 in Dynasty heading into the season. I had him ahead of players like Michael Pittman, JSN by 2, Amari Cooper, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk. Screwed that up. That was terrible. I really thought that Sean Payton coming into this offense, I thought that Jerry Jeudy would be the Michael Thomas-esque player. We saw Sean Payton able to do incredible things with Michael Thomas, just not running a crazy route tree either. It was mostly slants, short plays that they just peppered him with targets. I expected that to be Jeudy over Cortland Sutton this season. I don't think Sutton's taken on that role by any means, but he's for sure the wide receiver 1. Jeudy right now, not producing. He has, 491 yards on the season. That is 48th in the league, 57 targets, which is 51st, 40 receptions, 44th in the league, 1.53 yards per route run. That's 45th. It's just terrible. He's doing less than he did last season. Last season on 15 games played, had 972 yards, 6 touchdowns. It was solid. That was solid enough for wide receiver 21 in half PPR leagues. He's just taken a huge step down while the Broncos passing game has taken a step up. And that's the most disheartening thing to me, is we have seen Russell Wilson make improvements from the Nathaniel Hackett-led offense last season, while Jeudy has been left in the dust. And on top of it, Sutton is signed through 2025. Marvin Mims, he's a rookie this year, got another 3 years. Greg Dulcich should be more healthy next season. All of these take away from Jerry Jeudy, and Jerry Jeudy he got his 5th-year extension in the off season this last year. So he will be there next year. He won't have his own say in what team he wants to sign with. So not looking good. Not looking good on his long-term outlook. I'd be happy trading him away for a mid-second, honestly, at this point.
I traded for him for a second in the offseason, and now I thought it was a steal. I wasn't super high on Jeudy in the offseason, but I was like, second rounder for Jeudy, I'll take it. And now I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing a second rounder for Jeudy. I wouldn't be giving that up for him, competing, non-competing. The only thing about Jeudy that I think is upside is I do think they will trade him in the offseason. There was a little trade talks already this year about Jeudy. I don't think he's happy being there. I don't think the organization is too much committed to him. I think he finds a new home next year.
Yeah, I mean, he taught me a lesson that like good footwork does not equal good route running. And like he's a good route runner as well. He's got amazing footwork though. And I thought the two were more kind of hand in hand, and he taught me that they're not.
Yeah, I mean, he's just completely been outplayed by Sutton. Mims is going to take that role. If they ever get him on the field more, Mims is so explosive. I mean, what is the future for Jeudy? Hey, maybe they trade him to KC for Sky Moore. I definitely would take the Jeudy side of that. But, it doesn't look good for
I would take, in that instance, I would too. That would be amazing for him to land on the Chiefs.
But do you really think he's going to trade to KC? No.
Hey, the Yankees just trade with the Red Sox. Anything in that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm mind blown. As a Yankees fan, yeah.
really quick before we head out of here, though, Evan, I agree that his footwork has always looked nice, but he must be working some magic on us because reception perception, Matt Harmon has him ranked in the 63rd percentile in terms of success rate against man. He is in the 5th percentile against zone coverage. That is horrendous. The NFL as a whole is a zone-heavy scheme. And when you're in the 5th percentile against the most common scheme ran against you, that is not good for your projections. But that is going to wrap it up for this week of Fantasy Rant. Thank you for joining us, and good luck in your Week 14 matchups. Let's ramp it up for Week 15 heading into the playoffs. All right, take it easy.
Playoffs.
Peace.
Playoffs.